Hey, what is up, everybody? I am your host, Rob Younce, and thank you for tuning back into the Cast Show. If today is your first episode, you are in for a treat. If you've been with us before, we really appreciate you coming back, but either way, today's guest is our Canes Youth Director, Brandon Liles. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask a favor of you. We need your help in growing the show. So you can do that in several ways. First and foremost, just give us a like. Smash that like button. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast host, give us a like. 2, drop us a comment. Let us know what you like about the show or you don't like. 3, help us grow our community by subscribing. This lets others know that this show is legit. 4, show us some love with a review. Or 5, simply share this episode. Send it to your friends and enemies who are missing baseball right now. There's a lot of us out there. So please share this. Brandon Liles is very well known in the youth baseball circles. He's been with the Canes for several years and has helped develop our youth teams in several states. Today, Brandon talks about the importance of becoming a Cane in youth baseball and the commitment we make to help our young players. So let's go ahead and get into it with Brandon. Hey, what's up, everybody? Rob Younce and Jeff Petty here with another edition of Cast Show. Man, we've got a great treat today. So we've talked to a lot of guys that are alumni and some college coaches and things like that. Now we got a really cool dude here to talk about our youth program in the Canes and all the parallels between our youth and our showcase organization. So, man, we got Brandon Liles joining us from North Carolina. Brandon, nice having you, pal. How things going down there? How you holding up?
Well, we're holding up fine. It's we're adapting like everybody else. We're trying to figure out where this road's going to take us and what can we do, and cool things like this. Make it fun to kind of bide our time while we're waiting to get back on the field and do some things with the kids.
Yeah. So, how about you, Jeff? How you holding up there in Fredericksburg?
Oh, just trying to work and change poopy diapers and
still poopy diapers.
Yeah, be a decent father and a decent husband and locked up in this jail we call house.
Yeah.
Call our house. Yeah.
Interesting time, it is getting us to slow down a little bit. I know youth baseball is usually fired up by now. Brandon, give us a little bit of background about how you've been in our youth program and working with the Canes and all that, if you could.
Yeah, sure. I guess back in, the fall of 2010, Darren Campbell, Noel Campbell's dad, and I had a little local team. I say local, the Triangle area of North Carolina. Darren had a call from a guy named Doug Collins, used to be with the Canes, and, he reached out and said, hey, we may be interested in doing a youth team. Kind of saw that you guys were doing fairly well, and if you would be interested in joining. And Darren called me that night after he got to talk to Doug, and he just said, hey man, what do you think about this? And to be honest, at the time I was kind of like, why? I didn't see it. I credit Darren 100% for having that forward vision and thinking several years out at the time. He kind of explained it to me, and I said, hey, sounds like a good deal. Sounds like a chance to look ahead and see some guys, and it's funny, at the time there were dudes, and I say dudes, like Max Schrock and, Alex Rayburn, and those guys were just coming into it in high school. It's funny, the Seth Manis and the Jake Cage, they were, and I'm not sure exactly where they were in 10 and 11, if they had already completed or if they were finishing up their time. But, the big thing was you could see guys that were making it happen in college and or pro ball in the same organization. And that was the intrigue. And that was kind of, I think, what's blown up today with all these different organizations, trying to repeat, duplicate. And I think the Canes were, and several other national brands were one of the ones that saw early on, hey, if you can establish something early, these kids will want to stay with the program. It's kind of like growing up in a house, and whether you're Carolina, NC State, Virginia, University of South Carolina. If your parents bleed that, you're probably going to bleed that too. Well, when you get involved with these teams early and these organizations early, and you kind of, as we always talked about, your kids bleed yellow, and at the time it was green and orange and white,
right.
The old school, but they kind of get that in their blood, and they want to be a part of that later on. So that's kind of where it started, and it's evolved from one team to, I was looking the other day, and just in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, I think we have 26 youth teams across that region. Now, given the landscape and given some of this, these other things that drive it, there's organizations with way, way more teams than that. And we don't really, we don't just try to put teams out there to put teams out there. We want quality teams. And so
bingo.
That's been some of the driving force in all of it, and it goes back to, I can literally remember after our first fall of 2010, Darren and I sat down and we had a little game plan we put together, and then we went on, organization youth is USSSA. They do a great job of, the rankings and all this, based off your performance or whatever, just like Perfect Game and the showcase and everything else. But at the time it was really U-Trip. And, you could go into any state at any level and look who the best teams were. And so Darren and I just said, okay, we're 12. Who are the best 10, 11s, 9, 10s, and 11s in North Carolina? And what if we call those guys and say, hey, we were here with our little group, and now we're here. Would you guys like to be a part of that? And that's really how it evolved. I mean, we brought some great – I think the first year we had 3 teams. Three different age groups. Our first 12U team is, and I hate to talk about numbers, but like that little team was like 62-10. Right. And, it's literally going back to then, there was 12U dudes that we were watching play that are playing pro ball and college ball now. We can get into some of them later, but
right.
That's kind of where it started.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. That's I know you guys have been, getting after it for a little while on the youth side of things.
Yeah.
Jeff, what was the impetus to start, branching out into youth teams? What were some of the thoughts there? I know, you and Dan had kind of headed that charge. What was your thought on helping growing the brand that way?
Yeah, I think Brandon touched on it. I mean, just trying to get young kids in your uniform that take this thing seriously, that want to play baseball at the next level. It definitely helps you with your recruiting later on. I mean, if you're sitting there with these kids, a Noah Campbell at 14 years old, you don't have to go recruit the Noah Campbell when he's already been wearing your uniform for several years. But I think, the staple of it is just, like Brandon said, the team, the number he just dropped about the youth teams that we have might sound like a big number to some people that aren't really in the know of what goes on in our industry, but it could be, that number could be quadrupled if we wanted it to be. But we try to watch who we're putting in our uniform. And Brandon, I don't know if you're aware of this, and I know Rob is, but this year, this is the first time that we've ever done this. So our motto at the high school level has always been, you run a tryout, and you're at the tryout, and if you don't think the kid can play in college at some level, you cut him. So you just don't give him that. You don't give him our uniform. They're willing to write you the check. They're willing to play for the Canes, but we don't keep that kid. But I'll say this out in the open: we've changed our tune a little bit on that, and I'll tell you why at the high school level. And I'm not saying that I want to do this at the youth level. I think what we're doing at the youth level is perfect.
Right.
You think about a funnel, and you don't want to. But with the high school level, we started this developmental teams.
Right.
Where we're taking kids, and the reason we did that, and I'll say this, obviously this is going to get out in the sound waves for anybody to pull up. There's so many other organizations that are just taking everyone.
Right.
And in some cases, not being honest, sometimes these kids don't get their schedule till May.
Yeah.
They don't know where they're going. They don't know what team they're on. They just know they're on one of the teams. So what we decided to do this offseason, we were running tryouts, and a kid we would normally cut, like, okay, we're not going to put you on the Canes North team or the Canes South team or the Central team. We're going to put you on this development team over here. Right. We're going to bring you in on the weekend. We're going to practice. And then Cody Wheeler, who's our director of development, he's going to hand you a slip at the end of the weekend. He's going to say, these are things we need to work on them this week. I'll give you the drills, et cetera, the workout plans, even nutrition if you want it. And then after 2 weeks of that, we'll throw them a bone and go play in a tournament somewhere.
Right.
And we're telling them, hey, you're not ready. You're not ready. You're not going to play in college right now.
Right.
But if you do X, Y, Z underneath our tutelage, you could maybe crack that door open. And we kept some kids that we never would have kept before. And I think what's driving that ship is just baseball is a game this isn't about me or the Cades. This is about you and what you've done.
Right.
But, I want you at the youth level to know where our heads are at. There is still – we're a college placement program. But baseball is a game, man, and it's for everyone, right? Like if a kid really loves the game and wants to play, that kid should be treated right too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I say too, it kind of parallels, showcase, parallels the youth in, you're never going to stop looking for the elite talent. That's what drives the program. That's what's, gotten the national championships and brought the attention, and more people want to be a part of it. And that's why you have a kid from California that'll fly to Florida to meet you there, that they want to put the uniform on,
Yes.
And, it's funny. I was, as you guys contacted me, I was thinking about this, and it just brought up so many memories of, when we first started out with Darren, and just the phone calls that we were getting once it kind of got out that, hey, you guys are doing what? How do we get a part of that? Who do we call? What do we do? It's still similar today. I mean, it really is. I mean, I get a lot of phone calls from coaches or dads, really, is really what it is. And some of them have played at an extremely high level, some of them haven't, but, they have a coach that's on their staff that did. And so you're a little more comfortable there, and that's where, like I said, we don't take everybody. But what we do is, and kind of, what Dan and I've talked about is, we have a baseline of what we want to see that you're able to do before you put our uniform on. And if you can show that you can reasonably get to a decent level where you're pretty competitive, I'll take you back to 2010, 2011. There was literally, 5 teams in North Carolina, 3 specifically. We were in the Triangle region. There was a team in Greensboro, and there was a team in Kernersville. So that's kind of moving east to west across North Carolina. And they were the top 3 dogs pretty much. There were 2, maybe 3 teams under that any given weekend, given the tournament format, the right pitchers match up, they're going to knock you off. And, it's a big win, and your guys are, upset because they got beat in the semifinals. But that mentality of every weekend, these kids expect to be in the championship game. And we used to always talk about, we used to always talk about, we want to turn the lights off. When we leave, they cut the lights off on the field. So if that's happening, then you're doing something pretty good. And
it's funny you say that. I've never heard it that way. Rob, we've turned the lights out a few times.
Just a couple, yeah.
A few times. And it's
man, I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, when that tournament director or the guy there who's trying to get the one picture that he wants for his website, and you got parents and kids wanting to take more pictures, and they're like, okay, y'all need to get off the field, and then we move to the parking lot, and we're taking pictures, and then all of a sudden the lights go out. It's been a good weekend.
I love that, man. That's cool. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Yeah. So, anyway, there was a few teams in Virginia, a few teams in South Carolina, and pretty much any regional type event, 3-4 state, into Tennessee, you kind of had the same teams. I mean, it was pretty much the same teams every weekend battling it out. And so what you realized is, and what I tell parents all the time, whether when I was coaching or now more of the director and talking to coaches and parents, is the group's the group. You know, and what I mean by that is whether we say this one team, you know, and I could tell you that team that was 62-10, I wrote it down earlier. You know, there were 14 kids on that team. We had one MLB first round draft pick. We had 8 D1 players. We had a D2, a D3, a JUCO. We had a kid who played college football and a kid who played college soccer. Those are all highly driven kids.
No doubt.
Now, they fall at different levels, you know, based off them moving on up into high school or whatever. But the group's the group. And if we take that one team and we spread it across 3 states and we take the top teams in those states, those same kids are the ones going on to play college baseball from a youth experience or getting drafted. You know, now you have the what I call the onesie twosies. You have the ones that fall off and peak early at youth and they kind of fade out. You have the best, I guess, analogy I ever heard was, you know, Noah was fortunate enough early on, like I said, in high school to play with some talent and got some early interest. And we were a Sunday at Duke Sunday morning on a recruiting visit as a freshman. And Coach Jordan sitting there with us, and, you know, we're just general conversation. And he says, you know, everything's good till the fumes happen. You know, and I kind of sat there for a second, just confused. I didn't really know what. I was like, the fumes. He said, yeah, the car fumes or the perfume. And I said, man, you got it. If you can keep the fumes away, you got a chance for this kid to be really special. You know, and some kids
never heard that either.
I hadn't either.
No,
So
but obviously, I know the premise. Where you're going with that?
Yeah, I mean,
many dudes have gotten wrapped up in their vehicles or women.
Yeah, exactly.
No doubt.
And you know, but back to my original, you know, the group's going somewhere. And so what we tell our youth teams is, if you can hang on to the group's going somewhere. You know, you don't have to be at the top of the group. You don't have to be a Jordan Adele first round draft pick, you know, but you got to hang on to the group. And then if you'll hang on, that means you're doing the right things in the classroom and off the field as well as on the field. You know, things are going to work out in the end. Now, nobody can make promises of, you know, we're not going to sit here and say, hey, man, if you come to the Canes, you're going to be a D1 player. You're going to be a major league player. No, there's so many variables that, you know, that
the infrastructure sure in place.
Yeah.
Well,
if you do, you know, like you said, might fall where you fall. I mean, here's a good example. We had that summer trip planned. The year your son was playing,
right,
at our level.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan Adele goes to USA Baseball for 7 days.
Right.
Phone rings at your house.
Yep.
It's me. You know, hey, can he fill in for Jordan?
Absolutely.
He goes to Las Vegas,
Los Angeles, and
Los Angeles.
Yep.
Put together a heck of a tournament, dude. I mean, he played his rear end off for us.
Yeah.
I don't think Joe would like you guys using his government name.
Oh, that's right. It's not Jordan. It's Joe.
Right. Got it.
Get
it
right. That's right. But yeah, you're right. He went out there great.
He really did, man. He put together a.
Well, you know, and I think part of that goes back to this whole youth. You know, what we're trying to do in the youth levels. And, you know, what I used to talk about all the time. And once again, you know, Dan has done an amazing job with setting up these coaches meetings early in the year where we bring all the coaches in. We kind of go through our background. And some of them, you know, they've kind of been through it quite a few times if they came in early and they're still going with us. You know, but we go through the background and we kind of set expectation and you know, the expectation is for, you know, to teach at a high level, you know, and where I get the most frustrated is I see guys who forget the teaching part and they're all in on the coaching part, you know, and, oh man, they're really, really good coaches and they can win a lot of games, you know, but let's all be real about this game of baseball. It's not football. It's not basketball, you know. You know, baseball is it's an individual sport and a team concept. you don't if the ball's hitting you, you can't step out of the way and say, hey man, I want the best guy on the team to come catch this for me and make the throw. You got to do it.
Right. I mean, the coaching thing is, and I'm sure it's brutal down in those youth levels. Some of the stuff you see, it's got to be way worse than what we see. And what I mean by that is you can take someone like yourself who's got a big baseball background. You know the game. You know how to teach the game. And you can run up against a travel team that some dad put together, and he can run out of Mackenzie Gore on you, and you're going to lose.
It's happened.
You're going to lose.
It's happened.
And his coaching ability or lack thereof and your encyclopedia of baseball drills and knowledge isn't going to save you that day.
No. And
you're going to lose.
Right. And you know what? The best part of that is it keeps driving our kids. You know,
sure.
I mean, you know, I think in the youth game, that's where we need to, you know, we have to instill in kids how to win, because you learn how to win by really hating to lose. You know, and I think so many guys in this youth age, every weekend's a tournament. Okay, if we don't win, we'll go back the next weekend. You know, so all these trophies and medals and stuff, they just lose their value at some point. I mean, I can remember, you know, looking back and, you know, I'm looking in a bag in one of, you know, whether it's Noah or Jackson in their bags looking for something. There's 3 trophies in there. I'm like, where did these come from? You know, oh, they've been in there for months. You know, they don't even mean anything anymore. And every weekend's chasing a trophy, and it's frustrating. And that's what we really try to impress on our coaches is, you know, teach the game, you know, and back when I used to coach in high school at Fuquay Arena, you know, as a part-time coach, I would just go help out because you guys coach high school. You know, nobody's working with the outfielders. They're getting the last bit of your attention because you got so much other stuff to worry with. You know, so I would go work with outfielders and do some hitting stuff. But Tom Hayes, the pitching coach there at the time, he told me, he said, if you don't see it on TV, it's probably not a good idea. And that's just always stuck with me. And I use that a lot with these youth coaches, you know. I mean, how many times do you look at a high school game? Well, you may look at it a few high school games, but not in the varsity level, maybe the JV level. And you never see it in college and you never see it in pro ball. Who holds a guy on third? Nobody. You know,
hopefully
you don't hold it, you know, but you see it.
I hope not.
Yeah, but you see it at youth all the time. You know, the kid's standing there at third like he's the first baseman with his foot on the bag and he's got his hand out to the pitcher. You know, the next thing you see is a ball overthrown and a run scored. Why? Because nobody's teaching.
Here's a good one. And I know Yancey will back this up. This happens at our level all the time. Usually it's in Atlanta because they let 400 teams in the tournament.
Yeah.
Right.
But there'll be runners on first and second. We'll have runners on first and second. I'll be out there coaching third. Dang if they ain't holding the runner on at first.
Yeah, all the time.
And I want to say something, but I'm like, I'm not going to say anything.
I get it.
You know, it's like, yeah, that happens.
Yeah, oh, it does. And you know, and what we try to impress on these youth coaches, and kind of what I tell them all the time is, teach the game, coach to win. You know, you're going to make decisions coaching that, you know, in the heat of the moment or whatever, you know, maybe isn't the best thing as far as teaching, but you're coaching to win. Right. But when you're at practice, and there are obviously at the youth level, there are plenty of moments in games to teach. You know, it drives me crazy to go to a 9U baseball game on a 200-foot fence, you know, which is pretty typical for the youth. They're 200-foot fences and, you know, 50-foot bases, you know, 60-foot bases, 65-foot bases, whatever. And these youth teams will keep the pitcher in the middle of the field as the cutoff. And I'm just like, what are you teaching this guy? You know, I don't care. The game is the game. You know, it's not rocket science. If we'll teach it early, they'll have it later. But you guys at the high school level, you see it all the time. I mean, every year you come up and you get guys who they can hit and they can run and they can catch and they can throw, but their IQ is very, very limited.
Yeah, some of them
And it's
come
a
from
shame.
really good. Some of them come from really good programs, and then some don't.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and then unfortunately, I mean, yeah, I've seen some things where we've lost some games because we made some really poor decisions or weren't where we should have been or whatever, and
Right.
and you know that's supposed to be my fault, I guess, and it is my fault because he's in my uniform, but you get limited practice slots, which we've tried to fix. We try to practice, but you know, we'll be 5 weeks into the season and we always open up the weekend. We come in a day early and you'll have guys like pitchers. They're like, do I really have to go through this again? Like bunt coverages and picking like we've gone through this. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Absolutely.
You do have to go through it again
Right.
because I'm not going to lose
Exactly.
this weekend because you're not backing up the plate or what have you. So it becomes monotonous sometimes with elite level talent that isn't in high level programs. But you know, we are fortunate. We get players from high level programs, but you say something to them and it's just like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well,
you know, and
simple,
and it works. So
yeah, simple things. I mean, it's funny. I can remember back when, right when Noah was just starting playing, and before even with the Canes, and I'm working. I'm not coaching. I'm letting other guys do it, and we get to a practice, and in my brain, I'm like, okay, I know we're 8, but we can talk about double plays, and after the practice, we have a little team meeting, and this dad's coach, and he said, hey, we're just 8, we're just starting out, so we're just going to really cover the fundamentals of catching and throwing, and
might not be a good fit.
Yeah. I was sitting there kind of like, okay, well, we'll see where it goes for the season or whatever. And I remember talking to my wife on the ride home or either at home. I said, I picked Noah up today from school, first grade, and he tells me they're working on a second language. They're talking, just learning some Spanish. And I remember telling her, if he can learn Spanish in the first grade, then he can learn how to turn a double play.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's hitting a hard game,
you guys mentioned something earlier that I wanted to comment on is, Jeff made the comment about you facing a team that throws a Mackenzie Gore at you and you lose.
Yeah.
I've always said that's one of the biggest draws of being a hitter and playing for a Canes team, whether it's on the youth side or whether it's, as you get older into high school.
Good point.
Is you will have so many at-bats against top pitching.
Right.
Because everybody wants to beat us, and that's just a fact. I mean, I've seen it when I coached the North team. I've seen it, at our 14 national team. Everybody wants to beat us, so they always circle that game. And you mentioned too, Brandon, of you get the right matchup in a tournament on a weekend, and a guy, they've got their guy that beats you in the semis. That is one of the biggest draws to being a hitter in a Canes uniform is you get to get all of those at bats against top tier arms versus facing sloppy Sammy who's just flipping balls up over the plate. You just get so many of those at bats.
To piggyback on what you just said, Rob, we've been the beneficiary every year at my level, and I'm guilty of not knowing our younger kids as good as I should know. That's a fault of mine.
Yeah.
Like I don't know the studs on Rob's team. If someone put a gun to my head right now and said, give me Rob's 2 best hitters on his team this summer, I wouldn't know. Right. Now, I would know when Rob tells me, and he will.
Sure.
But every year we're sitting here with all these kids coming back to filter into our 17U National and American program. But there's always these just top 25 guys that are lingering in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And there's usually 5 or 6 who are just lingering. And the phone will ring. And it'll be an agent, or they call them advisors. I'm sorry, advisor, and he'll say, "It happened a month ago. We got the phone rang. It was CAA, which is a big agency.
Mm-hmm.
Got this potential first round talent out of Seattle, Malachi Knight. He's an outfielder. We saw him play at the area code games last year. He looks like a young Adam Jones, the center fielder from the old center fielder from the Orioles.
Yeah.
I mean, just dangly athletic kid, just power and just the whole thing." And we tried to get him last year to come play with us some in the fall, and it didn't work out. Kind of, file it away. But the phone rings. It's his agent. or his advisor, I'm sorry. And he's like, hey, we want him to play with you this summer. And the reason he wants him to play with us is case in point what Rob just said. He knows that when we play 30 games this summer, 35 games this summer, we're getting 35 aces.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I mean, Seth Beer, everyone talks about Seth Beer was a Cane. Seth Beer was a Cane for 1 year. Corbin Carroll was a Cane for 1 year. Now, I love the kids that come through for 5 years and 6 years.
Right.
But let's just be honest. When Seth Beer's advisor calls you, and I remember when it happened.
Yeah.
Seth Beer's advisor called me and asked him if he could be on my team. What am I going to say? No. He's one of the top hitters in the country.
Exactly.
So those guys will fall in our laps at the 11th hour in their last year of high school because of what Rob just said.
Right. Well, and
the trickle down effect to that, Jeff, which you and I have talked about this several times. People talk about how many guys we get committed to colleges. It's exactly because of that. Because then the guy that's been maybe in the program that might not be that tier of hitter is now playing for our North team or our South team, and is getting popped by an ACC team and or an SEC club. I mean, we've got tons of talent up through that come up through the pipeline. Well, the pipeline starts in our youth. Getting those guys and getting them at bats against everybody's stud, their ace, their biggest guy when they're 12 and 13 years old, they're getting those at bats. And then when they get up and now they're getting a little bit bigger and stronger, they're still facing those aces. So those guys that are in Brandon's pipeline now that are coming through, man, they're always so much more polished because they've always faced those guys. They've always faced those top arms, and it's just huge in the development.
Well, and that's
the depth is there.
Yeah.
I mean, I have little to do with this, man. I mean, I know I'm sitting at the top of the program, what have you, but I don't ever for 1 minute approach it that way. I can go out and you have the North team or the Central team or the South team on your schedule in the summertime, you're in for a fight.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, it's, and like I go back to the parallel, with the youth to the showcase, we tell our youth coaches, look, we don't expect you to travel the country every weekend. I mean, it's a little bit different than the showcase with, 8 weeks. I mean, these guys are, they're really getting cranked up into February, 1st of March is when youth kind of fires up, and it goes to July, and then they're 3 weeks off, and then it starts the fall season, and it runs, I'll say this. If you just wanted to go play, you could literally play every weekend somewhere in the country from January 1 to December 31st if you thought that you needed to do that. Now, we definitely tell our guys to scale that back. We don't need to be playing that much baseball. We also tell our guys, hey, we want these kids. We encourage your kids to play multiple sports. I mean, at the showcase level and dealing with draft guys, you see it all the time. It doesn't take much to pull up a roster, a division, any college roster. These days, it's not really made up of baseball players. It's made up of athletes. And even more so in the MLB. I mean, whether it's, you just name the guys. I mean, they've played multiple sports coming up. And so we want our kids to put the baseball down. Several years back, and like I said, we talk about all this stuff in our youth meeting that Dan and I have, but several years back, everybody's right now, we're talking about arm care. How do we protect the kids' arms and what do we do? And, when you're on an average youth team and you're the best player, okay, you're probably not getting to the championship that weekend because you just don't have enough little dudes around you, but that coach is probably going to ride you to wherever it takes them. And so if a parent is not sitting there doing their due diligence on pitches thrown and, one of the I see it all the time. The kid will pitch 4 innings. So let's say he pitches 3 innings on it's a Super NIT, which is a big tournament for U-Trip. Okay, that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay, so it'll start Friday night, and they'll do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and this kid will throw Friday night 3 innings. and he'll come back Saturday and catch, 2 ball games. And then Sunday, guess what? He's the championship pitcher.
That ain't good.
That's too much. And it doesn't take rocket science to figure that out,
It ain't good.
I heard I just went blank. New coach at Raptor was at Virginia, pitcher coach at Virginia. Coombs, yeah. Heard him speak, do a podcast several years back. And, one of the things that they used was 100 competitive pitches times your age. And they use that for their program, how many pitches guys should throw in a calendar year. Well, man, I can tell you, I sat there and I took my roster and I started looking at – because we click pitches every game, and I'm looking at – and I'm like, oh, my goodness, we got to find some more pitching. We got to find more pitching, even at the youth levels. So we talked to our coaches about, hey, we want you to be regional. We don't want you to, I'm kind of circling back, but we don't want you to stay home every weekend. You can't play the best talent staying in Raleigh. You got to be willing to go to Georgia, go to Virginia, go to Tennessee. Now, go ahead.
I got more of a personal question.
Yeah.
So, Noah's a senior at UNC Wilmington, right?
Rising senior. Yeah, this whole year has just been crazy. Yeah. Well, he's a rising senior with 2 years of left.
Jackson's a junior in high school.
Junior in high school, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
You are the Canes youth coordinator.
Right.
And you don't have a dog in the fight.
Nope.
That says a lot about you as a man, human being,
right,
as steward of the game, and I mean, dude.
Well,
you're not going to. I'm not trying to put you in a position to talk about yourself, but either me or Rob was going to point that out at some point. I'm sure he was going to.
I'll say it like this. And this is, Dan and I've talked about it. For the last 3 years, I think literally Dan's called and said, "Are you still in?" I'm like, man, yeah. I enjoy it. Let's don't get crazy. I'm not working on this 20 hours a week or anything like that.
You're giving back.
I'm trying to give back for the little bit of experience that I've had. I've seen what the one phone call from Darren Campbell when I had reservations. Okay. I wasn't in on the phone call.
10 years later, here we are.
10 years later, here we are.
That's right.
I've seen what it's done for Noah. I am seeing what it can do for Jackson. He's just kind of starting to find his way and figure it out and put it together. But I'll tell you this quick story, and I tell this like
people like you in authoritative positions in our program that don't have personal agendas, that are doing it for the kids, is why we are where we are. Period.
Yeah. Well, and I think Darren did such a good job in the beginning. It was easy to kind of pick up.
You're too humble.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of respect for Darren, but
I love Darren.
Darren's awesome.
Dude, Darren is the best. Me and Darren talk all the time. He's one of my best buddies. I love him.
I have a lot of respect for him, and it's funny awesome. Looking back. And I once again, I say the same thing. We tell the coaches this, but with Darren and I, there wasn't a head coach and assistant coach. We just did it together. We didn't worry about whose name was on the sign-up sheet when we entered the tournament. It was just, hey, we're entering. We're a team. We're a family. This is how we're going to do it. I'll tell you, and this is a personal story about Noah that I'll share with you of why I believe in this program. And I'll say this, there are other good programs out there too. We don't stand here and think we're king on the mountain.
Sure.
But we aren't bashful about the success we've had and how we go about our business either.
Right.
But so I told you that, the fall of 2010, we came in the summer of 2011, we were a 12U team. Well, as you guys probably know, from 12U to 13U is when you really hit the big field. And at that time, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made with a coaching staff about the players that you have. You know, hitting that big field is a game changer from the standpoint of physicality. And some kids, as talented as they are, they just aren't ready to take that step at that time. And, you know, I'll just tell you, I mean, I was coaching with Darren. We'd coached together for 3 years, and he was the head coach. And, you know, he called and said, you know, Brandon, basically, I'm not sure Noah's ready to take the step to the big field at this level with this group. Now, granted, half the group was also in that same scenario, and he was bringing in some older kids that were physically ready. And that 13U group had the Ashton McGee's, you know, and Ashton was with us the whole time, but you know, the Ben Highfields and Ben was with us early, but they were older. Noah wasn't physically ready. Darren said, hey, you know, come to the tryout, but just know that, you know, it's kind of like, it was an easy way to say, hey, I don't really need you coaching right now. And I understood it. Hey, was it a pride problem? Sure. I mean, I took a hit, you know, like, man, what is going on? But I also was smart enough to sit back and really swallow some pride and say, you know what? I couldn't have done that if I was the coach. While I'm hating it right now, I'm kind of glad he did it because Noah's not physically ready at that level to make this jump. And what also was on the teams that we were on, Noah was I'll say a bottom third player, you know, talent level. Had tremendous IQ, but physicality, you know, some guys were just better. And so he was a bottom third player. And I don't have a problem saying that now, and nor did I then. But what that allowed him to do was go to another team that was still pretty good. And I would talk to you in the beginning about there were 3 teams in North Carolina. There was 2 or 3 teams under that level. You know, it was kind of like we went from a national team to a central team, so to speak, at the same time. You know, the best thing that's ever happened to him in this game was he went to another team, and that coach told him, and it's funny, that kid plays with him now at Wilmington, but that coach told him, said, I don't need you to come here and bat 8. I need you to come here and bat 3 or 2 or 4. You know, that gave him the confidence that he needed to keep pushing to play at a high level. I tell that story because I tell it to every tryout that I go to with youth teams. I tell it to every situation when I'm talking with coaches, especially going from 12 to 13.
Right.
Because you get such a bond, and it's almost like in this travel circuit, you know, you're with these people so much that they become your closest friends, and, you know, but at the same time, they're not. You know, most of the time, you know, I say this all the time, Lance Wheeler gets a kick out of this when he started coaching with me and we joined together, you know, with Jackson, my second one. And I had to kind of tell Lance, you know, look, none of us exchange Christmas gifts. We're here for baseball. You know, if we can all remember we're here for baseball, then all this emotional stuff that we get caught up in gets pushed aside. We're here for baseball. We're going to have a good time. We're going to enjoy ourselves on the field, off the field as families, and we're going to get along. But how many of us exchange Christmas gifts? You know, I mean, you exchange Christmas gifts with your closest friends and your family, and that's kind of it. And we use that example with our teams because this youth thing gets so emotional.
It's not personal.
It's not. And when you're making, you know, when your best friend, you know, that you're coaching with, and when they have to make a decision that kind of pushes you out, it can hurt. It hurts. You know, it does hurt. But for Noah, I look back, and it's the single most important thing that's really ever happened to him, because from that moment on, and I'll finish the story, but from that moment on, he flipped the switch coming into that was at 13U. So going into the fall of 15U, there's a Canes tryout. Darren's holding at Holly Springs High School in Holly Springs, North Carolina, for 15U Central Canes. And at the time, that was the only 15U team there was outside of the North. So it was one team in North Carolina. That was it. Darren called me and said, hey, I've been kind of following Noah. I want you to come to the tryout. I was like, man, we're kind of comfortable, and I was a little bit unsure, He's like, no, I need an outfielder. No one needs to be at the tryout. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. Oh, okay. So, okay, I got it. So we show up, and I say the rest is history. He went on through the Showcase organization, has an opportunity to play college baseball, and kind of we are where we are at the moment. But that's why I'm invested now, because I've seen what it can do, and I've seen what it can do to not a Joe Adele or not an Ashton McGee, who's ACC Freshman of the Year, or Noah Campbell, who's a SEC All-American. I've seen what it can do to the kid who's hanging on. I'll go back to that has a dream of playing college baseball at a really high level and was fortunate enough to go on SEC, Tennessee, ACC recruitments, but ended up, at a really great program at a D1 level at a mid-major in Wilmington.
Yeah.
And
we're UNC Wilmington is not. UNC Wilmington is not like.
No.
That is a high level program.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, every year, like since we've been a part of it, last year, I mean, even, Mike Fox had no problems putting it out there. The last team he wanted to play in the regional was UNCW.
That's correct.
That
is correct. It's really neat to see, Brandon, you're taking, and I think this lacks in some of the organizations I've seen. I mean, I don't necessarily pay attention to them all, but I see that you're taking all of the things that we've done, Jeff's done for so many years, and all of us coaches at the showcase level, and mirrored it down, and whittled some things out, taken some things out,
sure.
But kept the brand the same, which I think is really something that really attracted me to doing this. And Jeff and I talked about it, is that the neat part about it is you're helping us run that part just as the showcase portion is. And I kind of don't like the I guess the titles that go with everything, showcase or travel or youth or whatever. But I mean, we use it in this context for distinction between the two. But ultimately, it really is just Canes baseball. And that's the cool part of this, is that, the continuity of the development, of bringing up dudes, and having been in, the recruitment part of things and finding guys to fill out rosters and stuff like that. It's always been great to have those guys, that core group of kids that'll come in, together, and then we put other pieces around them to make it a really cool team. Whether it's a regional team or whether it's a national level team.
Exactly.
Typically, Jeff can attest to this. It's always easier to bring up that core that's been with the Canes, and then you go and find pieces to plug in, rather than saying, well, we don't have anything, let's start from scratch. And then you run into those issues of, hey, this guy's been in a different uniform and he doesn't want to play with us or with another team in general. He wants to stay with his core.
Right.
And that's a difficult task. It's difficult to, I know how difficult it is at showcase level. And you mentioned, you touched on the emotion that's involved, because, especially down at that age group.
Oh, yeah.
You have so many people that are just concerned with little Johnny making it to the major leagues. And, there's a lot of moving pieces at that point.
It's so wild, man.
It's I'll get phone calls that, I've had a couple this year that, you try to be respectful. You want them to, you hope you want to stay a part of the organization, if it's a good fit, but I'll be the first one to tell you, I won't name names, but there have been elite level dudes, and let me back up. Our youth program runs from basically 8U to 14U.
Right.
And I can remember back, the 14U teams, there's been a few that, I go back to Dan coming in and really seeing this and bringing this to life. But, there's a reason that we don't put 14U teams in showcase events. It's pretty obvious. The physicality is most of the time not there. However, some of these teams have shown the ability to go compete in a 15U event on a weekend with some decent success, and it gives you guys, or it gives Dan or somebody, hey, these are the guys that are coming. These are the dudes that, we've kind of groomed through this whole youth
It's nice
deal.
to see that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I go back to Darren's group. I can remember that 15U fall with Darren, and we would go to events, and we would roll out. We'd say, hey, just kind of like now, you guys are pitching this time, and this time. We were hitting wood bats when everybody else was hitting metal, and Darren didn't care. He's like, hey, we're getting ready for Georgia. I don't care about winning this event. When the time stops, they're going to stop the game. We're not here to win. We're here to get better, and let's get ready for the tournaments that we do want to win.
Well, and that's what we did, last year with that 14 and under national team.
Right.
We brought in Sean Gallagher's group.
Yep.
And then put pieces around them. We brought in like a Jack Renault from New Jersey. We brought in, a couple other dudes. And that's the beauty of this, is that, that core, all the fundamentals they've been working on. I mean, Sean's a great coach.
Yeah.
Coached at Wake Forest. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better scenario there.
No.
But all those guys, we took them as a group, and same thing. We went and played up and from 15 and under events, and we were hitting with wood while everybody else is hitting metal. And having talented kids out there. We boat raced a few. We took some lumps.
Yeah, sure.
But other than that, at the end of the day, I like exactly like you said, is Dan and I and Mike Williams, and you had Sean Gallagher, and Jason Hare. We told kids, we don't care. We don't care if you go out and get beat. Sometimes it's okay to get your nose punched in, and we want to see how you're going to respond. Yep. So, we actually played, I think at one tournament, we played a 16 or 17-year-old team and absolutely boat raced them. And then we go to the PG World Series and face a 14 or 15-year-old throwing 92 with 3 pitches. I mean, you're going to face it.
That's
if you face it, if you're good enough to play high school, you're going to see it.
Yep.
You get to college, you're going to be playing with grown men as a 19-year-old freshman.
That's exactly right.
We just want them to learn, get better. And it's great to see that is the same mentality down at our lower age groups. Yes, we want to teach them to win, but we also want to teach them how to be good people, how to win right, how to lose right.
That's right.
How to develop into a player that's going to contribute in high school, going to contribute if they're fortunate enough to go play in college, and hopefully play in pro ball if they're good enough and they make those jumps. I mean, it's really hard to run the teams, even in 15 and up. I mean, that is really hard. But hurting, for lack of a better word, hurting all those cats and emotions and all those things down at the youth level is surely a challenge. And you're doing it really well. And I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, I see all the work you do, and you got a lot of guys working, in different states with you, and
sure,
no soup here in
absolutely
in Virginia Beach, and we got a lot of guys all over the country, and it's neat to see how you and Dan have organized.
I mean, like I go back and we want to see early on that you've been able to figure out kind of this process, this youth, road that it's your own, and if you figured out that, you're going to have to, if you want to be good and you want to compete at a high level, and hey, let's face it, when you figure it out and you are good, the phone starts ringing. No different than at the showcase level. And that's why I say it's such a parallel. It really is. I mean, the better you get, the more the phone rings, and so it's that parallel. And then, what I tell guys all the time, man, if you think putting it together is the easy part, you're missing it. It's keeping it together.
How about it?
It's not putting it together. That's the easy part. I can go back to an instance several years ago. We had a guy with, played at a high level, coached at a high level, came into the organization, and, he kind of went around the East Coast especially and just grabbed shortstops. And they all bought in until the second, the third, and the fourth tournament, and all these shortstops realized they all couldn't play short. And so you have an unbelievably talented group, but who's going to play right field? You know, who's going to play left field? You know, and we try to help these coaches and dads. Let's face it, hey, you know, Jeff, you're coming. You know, you at some point you figure out that the daddy goggles, you just can't take them off. They're there and they're permanent.
Right.
And it's hard to look at your kid and evaluate. And what I tell people all the time is, if you can ever figure out how to evaluate your kid's talent in relation to their peers, then you're going to be gaining ground. But we all have these, you know, everybody's is a little bit different in the blur, but we've all got the blurry goggles that just are permanently there when it comes to our own kids. And we kind of need other people to help us push us in the right direction. And so I try to educate parents as much as I do the coaches, just from having gone through it. You know, and I'm no expert by any stretch, but you know, we've got a template together that, you know, Dan's definitely helped when he's come in, and just how we want to develop this youth program and see these kids mature and go on into the showcase organization. And, you know, the cool thing, I mean, it's funny, I was watching the video with Jake Cave the other day, and, you know, him talking about playing against Yelich and striking out Trout. You know, it's the same memories in youth. You know, I mean, I could tell you of 11U events in Florida with Tucker Bradley, who's at Georgia, you know, hitting a bomb off of us, you know, with this little Georgia Bandits team, you know, and now I'm watching him play at the University of Georgia, you know, or Tyler Keenan at Ole Miss, you know, who didn't play in the Canes program, you know.
Right. Now you just see so much, for sure.
You do.
It's crazy.
I mean, and I go back to what I tell them all the time: hang on to the group. The group is going somewhere, and if you can figure out how to hang on, then, you know, just the wave is going to take you to some level if you're willing to work. But, you know, some people don't. Some people have other sports. Hey, we all know that in this travel ball showcase market, you know, finances can be an issue for some.
Sure.
We have different and I'll say this, you know, we don't get involved on a financial or personal level with our team, so to speak. You know, I don't tell them how to coach. We have certain ways that we would like to see, and that's where we vet up front. If we do our vetting up front, we don't have to worry about it once they get there. You know, so, you know, they have to be able to represent the brand in the right way. And it doesn't just, and that's what, you know, we focus on. It's not just the kids and the coaches, it's the parents, because that's where the trouble that's where you usually kind of get in trouble at weekend events. You know, the umpires aren't good. Man, they're getting paid $40 or $60. How good do you think they're going to be? You know, I mean, you going out there screaming, kicking dirt, raising Cain, and your parents over here, it's not helping. The student ain't changing his mind.
That's right.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, I mean, it just go out there and say, hey, man, I need you to get some help. If you will, could you please get some help? Because for everybody else here, it was obvious. But you know. Right. And if he says no, walk back to the dugout. I don't know what to tell you.
You know, we've got somebody on staff that can take care of that. We got a guy named Bob Davis that's pretty good at handling that stuff. Brandon, man. Hey, buddy. You know what? I think we're running up on time, and man, we can sit here. We're gonna probably have to come back to you here in a little while, maybe when we start getting closer to firing it up, because, you know, you have been here for, you know, 10 years working in our youth program, and you've done phenomenal things.
Well, man, I enjoy it.
You make the job of, you know, Dan and Jeff and Damon and all those guys that do recruiting so much easier because of what you do. And the thing that I'm most impressed with is the continuity of our youth program, of the quality that keeps coming up year after year. You know, you're doing a great job of making sure you get the right people on board. And I think that's hugely important because, as you said, the more you vet up front, the less issues you have moving forward. And,
right.
And you're a valuable asset here. We really appreciate it. We're going to put your contact information at the end of this video, so that everybody who is interested in talking to you about maybe bringing their team over can do that.
Sure.
You know, have a conversation with you. But dude, it has been awesome getting to spend more time with you. Yeah, this has been so informational, so crazy, full of good stuff, man.
So the vision has been, and where Rob and Dan wanted to get on the horn with you. I don't know whether what they wanted, whether it was going to be like once a month or maybe even maybe twice a month or once a week. I don't know, where you pop on here when we get back playing and you're like, hey, these are the guys that are coming through.
Yeah.
And you sit here and you talk about all these kids on the air.
Right.
So let's make a pact with each other. The three of us.
Okay.
That at least once a month, the three of us get on a call. Yeah. And you let us know about these exciting 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds coming through, and give them some notoriety, and also puts their names in our heads and gets it out. That's what this was originally intended to do, right, Rob?
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we wanted, was promoting those kids and getting that information out. But it's evolved into great conversations like this, because I could go on all day. You are awesome to talk to. You're a wealth of knowledge, and you're doing it the right way. And that's so hard, finding affiliates and finding guys within the program that do it the right way. I know that's just a struggle.
It is and it's not. like I said, I think early on when we do the vetting up front and the guys come through the program, just like Sean Gallagher. Sean's he's one of the best fundamental guys that I've ever been around from a practice standpoint. I guess coaching in high school and where I was at, and I was kind of, like I said, I was stuck with I was put with the outfielders. I learned a long time ago to quit watching the baseball. As soon as the ball, if the ball's hit, I know what side the field is on, so I watch that point. But my view is to the outfielders and the infielders. Are they backing up? Are they doing the right things? And I take that same stuff to try to impress on our youth coaches is, look, you got 4 coaches in the dugout. One guy's calling pitches, and the rest of you guys don't just sit here and grab a Gatorade and relax till they come in to hit. Be involved. One of you take the outfielders, one of you take the infielders. Let's make sure our cuts are right. We're working on these things at practice. And so it's just, we want to teach them the game. And like I said, I go back to, I probably could have won a lot more if I was a much better coach, but I really pride myself in trying to teach the game and prepare these kids. And when you get phone calls from parents saying, my kid was on the JV team and he was having to tell the third baseman not to hold the guy on third, it's a pretty funny phone call, because our kids do that at 10U. We're not holding anybody on third.
Right.
So. And that's exactly what we need at the youth level. We need more guys like you that are teaching the fundamentals, because that's hugely important, especially when they get up to our age. And really, if you look at it, we're trying to develop them for high school. We're trying to develop, if they have the ability to play in college, to do that for pro baseball. So, having you down there, especially for the last 10 years, has been absolutely awesome. We will definitely check in with you again, because we want to hear about the talent that's down in our youth slot. It's so important to the health of our organization, and we just really appreciate you very much.
Yeah, well, I can tell you some dudes are coming. Some dudes are coming, so it's a lot exciting. It's going to be exciting in the coming years.
Can't we? I just want to play again.
I know, right?
Exactly.
Oh, no. Well, man, as we get closer to playing, we'll check in with you. But if you ever need anything, obviously give us a call. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
today.
for all
you
you
absolute stud. And please pray for getting back on the field sometime soon, my man.
Have y'all had any rain lately? Last year it would be pouring right now. We hadn't had any rain.
Every day is
games
gorgeous.
Be canceled. You're trying to figure out how to reschedule. Now we got the best weather in the world.
I've been on a lot of scenic routes, scenic walks with my family.
Yeah.
About 71 degrees, no clouds.
Hey, the first pitch, the rains are going to start.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly right. All right, bud. Thanks a lot.
Take care so much. See you guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully you got as much out of this episode as I did. Big shout out to Brandon Liles for joining us. You can give him a follow on social media at BLilesCanes. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, subscribe, review, and share it. Give us a follow on social media at CaneCast Show. You can reach out to me directly on social media at Rob Younce on any of the social channels. You can also email me directly at robyounce@gmail.com. You can find Jeff Petty on social media at WJeffPetty. We welcome your feedback as we look to improve on this show every single episode. Until then, stay safe, wash your hands, and make sure you find a travel program that helps you get better, even during the shutdown.